Hi, and welcome to Thanks Again Film, episode 7. Star Wars. Star Wars Episode 1. The Phantom Menace. I haven't covered 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the channel yet. I have covered Rogue One. Rogue One is heartbreaking. It'll put you in tears. But yeah, I'm gonna try and talk about it from memory. Episode 1 from memory. I have fond memories of episode 1. I saw it on my birthday. And I went to the theater. And no one was there. It was nice and pleasant. It was during the daytime around noon. And it's different. It's positive. It's different in that they overhauled it, redesigned it, and it's still Star Wars, and it's fun, but it's tuned to be a kids movie. But it's still great. When I posted the essays, they got some feedback, and not everyone agreed. I don't think everyone liked the message. Star Wars fans are vocal. They know exactly what they like about Star Wars and what they want out of Star Wars. And I was saying my opinion. I think what it is when you hear about Star Wars, you want to hear what George Lucas has to say about Star Wars. He will tell you about the light and dark, and about caring and all. There's a whole joy and happiness speech that he gave. He can quickly tell you about what the story is. And in the essays, it is a perspective of what are these stories trying to say as a story. What message can I understand by them saying that? What are you trying to tell me exactly? It's that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a bright movie. It's a fun, bright movie. Episode 1. That's the one with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's a Padawan. Now, I've read a lot of the novels. And there was a whole wave of novels that came out recently. Not recent. I'd say within the past 10 years, recently, type of thing. where it's about Obi-Wan being a Padawan. And he was not the best swordsman. He actually failed. Obi-Wan was such a bad swordsman that he was about to be kicked out of the Jedi Academy. The Jedi were going to give up on Obi-Wan Kenobi and send him away to the farm. He actually had that in his sights, and he was worried about it. He was that bad of a swordsman. He couldn't keep up. He was looking at all these other Padawans training, and they have different lightsaber forms. And he tried his best to be one of them and show up and be flashy and meet with the others, and he couldn't keep up. And that's what happens with Jedi. If a Jedi is going through training, Padawan, and they don't make it, or they can't attune to the Force properly, or to where they're lagging behind in some way, where they can't finish the training, they get sent to a farm. I think it's because they have to be kept track of. They don't want Force sensitive people running around causing trouble. They're still part of the unit of being a Jedi. It's just they can't be a Jedi. So they put used to them as being farmers. And what happened with Obi-Wan was he had a sink or swim moment where the story placed him in saying, if I don't need to beat these people, I just need to block them. I just need to keep up with them. I need to block what they do. I don't need to attack them. And in doing that, Obi-Wan becomes just as good as the greatest swordsman that ever was. Just because his lightsaber form, I think it's the first one, is a heavy defense. The best defense is good offense. And that's Obi-Wan. And also what surprised me was that he's a Padawan up to the age of 25. There's lore and story stuff going on in the Phantom Menace, where Obi-Wan's he's hanging up the the braid at around 25, and he meets Anakin for the first time. And part of what the problem of their relationship is that first meeting, where he says, did we pick up another pitiful life form? And Anakin, he's around 10. He meets this, and then he shakes his hand. What age is that's like a 5th grader. You remember that stuff. Did we pick up another pitiful life form? Then there's Qui-Gon. If you listen to Star Wars people, this could go on for days. Where you're picking at characters and all the lore and the stuff and how they relate to others. Qui-Gon's important. Qui-Gon's super important to the story. I think Filoni was talking about it most recently. The lore about Qui-Gon that I heard was Qui-Gon was the dad that Anakin was supposed to have. Instead, he had to hang out with a brother type character, Obi-Wan. And he says as much story-wise because the council wanted to say no. Qui-Gon lands at this out-of-the-way place, sees him and picks him up and says, yep, you need training. And he already has a Padawan. Qui-Gon cares from the start. Phantom Menace is really good. There's Jar Jar. Jar Jar makes me laugh. It's a shortcut. It's a literal shortcut. If I'm in a serious space where I have to sit there and be serious and listen to people, if my brain drifts off and pulls up any sort of Gungan mess, I have to excuse myself. It's a little it's silly dialed up. Then there's Padme. What's neat, when I think of Padme, I think of those novels that came out. I think there's 3 of them. There's 2 or 3 novels, Padme novels. And one thing that bugged me was in those books, they go over, part of it is that she's a lady. She's a lady of high refinement. And she has handmaids. She has a wardrobe. She has a wardrobe that is designed. She is a special person. She talks in the Senate. And she ruled over a planet. She is a special person. And part of her special clothing has weapons. In those novels, they wrote that Padme's clothing has secret compartments and pockets for like hand blades and whatnot. And the handmaids that follow her identical handmaids, or just girls that look like her. Some of them, I think there was one specifically that was a bit of a fighter. So if Padme were to all this political stuff in Star Wars, where there are explosions, there's sabotage, you've got deadly bounty hunters showing up at your house. All sorts of stuff is happening. If she gets kidnapped or something, watch out. And that's what bugged me about the book was there's old storytelling stuff. Was if you mention a gun in chapter 1, you're supposed to use it by chapter 3, and it never happens. The whole time I'm sitting there, it happens more than once in those books. I mean, more than one book where you're chapter 1, 2, and 3. You're hearing about her wardrobe and how deadly it is, and nothing happens with that. It's all political and how she can disarm situations and whatnot. Darth Maul too. Then there's Darth Maul. Darth Maul's a cool character. I heard that he was supposed to be the main villain for 789. I heard Darth Maul is supposed to come back and partner with Darth Talon, which is the what do they the lore I forgot what they call it. Legends. I think it's Legends. The lore that they disregarded, but is slowly creeping back. Darth Talon was the Twi'lek lady, the red one with the black markings. Those two were supposed to hang out and cause trouble. And so far, the story has it where he's ruling the underworld. Palpatine is ruling the universe, but Darth Maul is being underhand and controlling all the mafia, basically. And I bet he gets tired of it and decides to practice the rule of two. But, of course, Palpatine would be gone by then. So he's probably trying to take a throne. Or reestablish one. But if we're talking about what might have happened, I think it's really cool, the idea of the wills. The idea was that by the end of Star Wars 789, that the story would go micro, insular, where they will dial down into the Force. Also, there's Ray Park, who plays Darth Maul. And he makes me laugh. Sometimes I'll go over to his Instagram, and there's the one memory that pops up is there's this picture of him standing in front of Superman. There's this picture of him standing in front of Superman, and all he's doing is pointing at him. It's like, I can't believe it. And the picture of Superman is him putting his hands out and breaking chains. Superman was trapped, and then he burst out of a bunch of chains. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you know exactly how funny that is. What was I talking about? I took a little commercial break there. Going insular. He was going to go insular and do stuff with the wills. And I think that would have been great for the story. I think that would have been fantastic. Because if the whole time in Star Wars, if there was a force that was micro, called the wills, that influenced how force users behaved. For example, if they said the force has this many light side users, I think we need a little more of the dark side, and influenced and supported a Palpatine. That means you have the wills saying things, guiding a Palpatine without him realizing it. And that is not who that character is. You could bring back Palpatine and have a moment where Palpatine turns. That's something that Mary Claire often talks about, is a sheevdemption, she says. Which is an idea of being redeemed or saved. Is that every character, generally in Star Wars, the idea is people making mistakes. And finding a moment of redemption and seeing that it's better to be on the light side. It's healthier. And even the darkest, meanest character ever made can have that turnaround. And I think in interviews, George Lucas says no. He Palpatine is the darkest, meanest character. Even Ian McDermott talks about having, when playing Palpatine and going to the Emperor, it's like there's a frog or something buried inside that is climbing out or gurgling. It's like there's a monster inside that slowly shows up. But Palpatine, if Palpatine caught wind that someone was actually controlling him the whole time, he'd say no and focus all of his hatred in that direction. And that would have been an awesome story point, to have that kind of turnaround of where the heroes are trying to face the wills and then Palpatine has to show up and save the day. But I don't know. Star Wars is still, I mean, they're still making it. It could happen. In my mind, I always thought that it would go on forever. Even if they let go of the Skywalker idea or the family, that the events would continue and carry on. There would be a Star Wars 25. I always thought it would be that way. And it looks like it might happen. They're still making it. The characters from 789 are returning. That makes me happy. Yeah. But this is episode 1. What else happens in episode 1? They face Darth Maul. There's some real lore stuff that happens in episode 1. The pod race. There's some super lore stuff. There's an idea. They say in the story that Anakin was made of midichlorians. He birthed from midichlorians. He's from a fatherless birth. The Force just showed up on Shmi. The Force showed up on Shmi, and she had Anakin. There was no father. And there's lore in the comics that say the dad was Palpatine. That Palpatine showed up on Tatooine and focused the Force to create Anakin on that slave. She must have some sort of special attunement. Which means that Palpatine would be Anakin's dad. He'd be the first Skywalker. March forward. You have Luke. So now Palpatine's grandfather and then you march forward and you have Rey. Now Rey's confusing. Story wise, story wants to say that Palpatine had a son. Now we're back to Anakin. And that son had Rey. Which means Luke. So in 789, when Rey shows up to talk to Luke, and she's like handing out the lightsaber, that's her talking to her cousin. No, that's her brother. They have the same grandpap. Rey was talking to her older brother. She is a Skywalker. But she's not. She's a Palpatine. But she would rather be a Skywalker. There's all sorts of lore with that points to that. It's like, I think her first words in that movie, episode 7, she's yelling at a junk trader, or a little, there's a robot or a junk trader out on the sands. And she yells something out at the junk trader, and it sounds like gobbledygook. Because it's alien voice. And if you, whatever the heck she says, if you say it backwards, it's I am a Palpatine. But this is about episode 1. Episode 1 starts out with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And there's a blockade. There's a blockade over the planet of Naboo. I forgot, what do you call it? I can't believe my Star Wars is getting rusty. They have a blockade over Naboo. And they're blocking the resources. It's some kind of taxes. They're blocking the resources from the planet of Naboo. And no one is showing up to help. Time out. I could just look it up. 1 second. Okay, Misa back. This movie made $1.4 billion. The Trade Federation has disrupted order in the Galactic Republic by blockading the planet Naboo in secret preparation for a full-scale invasion. The Republic's leader, Supreme Chancellor Finis Valorum, dispatches Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice. Star Wars is so much fun. Obi-Wan Kenobi to negotiate with Trade Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray, Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, and the Trade Federation's secret benefactor, orders the Viceroy to kill the Jedi and begin their invasion with an army of battle droids. So, lore-wise, that is Palpatine's planet. I'm not sure if he's from Naboo, but he picked Naboo. It's a nice planet. It's luscious green. It's got waterfalls. That is Palpatine's planet. And the Trade Federation are the problem. They're the bad guys. And they show up on Naboo and blockade the planet. So what is that? The Trade Federation. That means that they have intergalactic resource management. And the people behind that show up and say, cough up some money so that we can keep the ships rolling. And that's the premise. But what's actually happening is they rolled up, parked it right in front of Naboo, and they plan on invading and taking over the whole place. And saying this is our planet now. So the people on Naboo have called for help because they can't get resources in. They can't figure out how to get past Palpatine's plan. So they call 2 Jedi to show up and say, knock it off. People need supplies. And as soon as they do, they try to kill the Jedi. Fast forward, the Jedi aren't easily destroyed. So they hop down on the planet and they run for their lives. They're smart. They bump into Jar Jar and they go meet the Gungans. And then they run into the people of Naboo and they go save the princess. They go right to the capital. They march right in with their lightsabers. And they save the day, just like the people they're asked. But there's robots everywhere. So they run for their lives and get off planet. They save the political leadership from being destroyed. So Naboo gets to live another day. So the idea is that Padme, the leader of Naboo, gets to go to the Senate and ask for help. Time out. After they run for their lives, the group of Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Padme, her handsmaids, Captain Panaka, I think, and R2-D2 all head to the planet of Tatooine. Now, I think from there, there are 2 story beats to hang on to so far that I saw when looking at The Phantom Menace. One is that the main characters of the story, when you introduce a story, usually you could find out what the story is trying to say within the first scene or 2. So-and-so will say, I have a problem with this, or there will be a character beat. In really good writing, there will be a character beat within the first scene or 2, which you can understand what the rest of the story is going to be about. And with The Phantom Menace, it's the blockade. There's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And then they help out Padme. Padme's job is to be the queen of Naboo. And what she does is she decides to run to the Senate to get help. So what I'm seeing is the main character of the story so far. Since they opened this story talking about a blockade, I think the main character of the story so far are characters dealing with the blockade, which is Padme and the other side may be Anakin. So the group picks up Padme and they carry her off to safety to Naboo, thinking no one would be looking for her there. They need to stop for supplies and repairs. They just got shot at. So, on Naboo, looking for repairs, they bump into a junk trader that has a little boy who repairs basically anything. And he sees Padme and he says, "Are you an angel?" It's a type of love at first sight with those two. But he's really young, and so is she. And she thinks it's adorable that she has an instant fan. From there, it's a weird, not weird, it's probably the most creative part of the story. Is the, what do you call it? The pod race. The pod race is probably the most creative part of the story. Partially because of the sound design. It was so unexpected to see it in the theater. Star Wars stops all of a sudden, and it's NASCAR. But out of that, there's a little boy that gets picked up by the Jedi. And the strangest thing happens is where Qui-Gon, with a lightsaber, doesn't free his mom too. I've never understood that. It causes so much trouble that they left her as a slave. It says something that Tatooine must have had a slave problem. Qui-Gon could have gone in and had just paid to free his mom. I'm sure the Republic had the credits. But instead, he went gambling to earn the money. And he didn't have enough to free both of them. I never understood that. Even if he looked at that, you'd think he'd... I don't know. It baffles me. because he's willing to take he's willing to take him to go train personally, and he's gonna leave his mom in slavery. So off they go. And it feels, once they leave Tatooine, it feels like the story's back on track somehow. Where Padme finally gets to be back to business. And this is something that I think is happening. I'm going to skip over a bunch of stuff, but I think this story is saying that episode 1 is about self-reliance. Anakin is working to free him and his mom. And Padme heads off to the Senate. And what happens is she shows up and she asks for help. She says, the people of my planet are in trouble. There's a blockade. Can you please send all your forces? And they don't. They decide not to help Padme. And that's baffling. No, she has to fix it on her own. And part of the reason, I don't know, if you take a step back and look at it, why would they reject helping her? A whole planet worth of people. I think they said they didn't believe that the problem was what the problem was. But there's also the idea that the people of Naboo have been at war with the Gungans. There are split factions on Naboo of where the people upside on Naboo get into, well, so far what's seen of them is that they look wealthy. They wear robes. They have grand houses. It's a plush green environment. And the trouble is with people who literally live underwater. I mean, it's saying something. They're a tribe. The Gungans are a tribe. When they show up to fight, they carry sticks, not blasters. And it's possible that the people of the Senate are aware of this. And they look at Padme asking for help and saying, you have other things that you need to be focusing on, Naboo. The bully is getting bullied. Go figure that out. Maybe stop being a bully and see if help arrives. Which means that if Padme were aware of such a choice, it means that she showed up in her shadow, her ego. To think of herself when she needed to think of also the Gungans. But the next part of the story is she does just that. She runs back home. They all run to Naboo, and they have a meeting with the Gungans. And the story gets brighter. They agreed to help stop the droids. And the planet becomes one planet and not a planet of factions. And to say such a thing, it's about self-reliance. It's in my notes I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. From there it gets into the partners that you pick. Phantom Menace is a lot of fun. When they get to Naboo, no, they after the meeting, the rest of the movie is just it's an action movie. Is a pure action movie where they show up in the air hangar and there's a Sith waiting. Personally, I've always thought that the Phantom Menace, people have said that not everyone likes it. It's like a kid's movie. It's not my Star Wars. It's not how it used to be. You'll see where they rank the Phantom Menace. Whereas, no, they don't. They don't want to watch it. It's some kid's movie. There's pod race. I always thought the Phantom Menace needed another half hour. That was always my point of view. Was Phantom Menace is a good movie. I remember when it came out, I collected those Pepsi cans. I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I had I had Pepsi cans saved in a case. I was so gung ho Star Wars And over the years, what happens is, I guess they got pressurized or something, but they started to leak on their own. It's like the tin war thing. The power of the syrup ate through that thin Pepsi metal. But Darth Maul shows up. And I always thought the movie could use another half hour of it's a surprise, but earlier in the movie, you don't see anyone from Naboo. It's all Gungan. It's Gungan and then the politicians. And I thought the movie would be cool if there was another half hour where the Jedi show up on Naboo, and then they head out, they save the politicians. If they could head out and save a village or something. And meet a Sith. It happens on Tatooine. But part of me thinks it should have happened on Naboo. That there's a war struggle happening between the people of Naboo and the Gungans. And it's actually a Sith stirring up trouble. Of where a village gets wiped out. That's Naboo people. And then Naboo shows up and says, what happened here? All those Gungans. But this time the Jedi show up just in the nick of time. And they see that it's an actual Sith problem. And then they're in the ship chasing across the stars. And he tries to land and hide on Naboo. Tatooine. Where they meet Anakin. That's what I always thought the story needed. Just another half hour. Then they fight. And it's one of the coolest lightsaber fights. Still. Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. It's story. The characters are so strong. Like they actually... The characters are so strong that the performance, you know exactly who they are with the sound off and all sorts of things. But the story is over from there. I think the story is saying self-reliance. It's kids starting out in the world. Padme has to get told no. Anakin gets told no. And they had to figure something out on their own. And it builds character. But what's interesting is Padme deserved to get told no. She showed up regal, asking the rich person showed up regal and asked for money and resources when she's at war with people who are underwater and fight with sticks. That's someone showing up in their shadow. And she drops it immediately and practices self-reliance and heads on home. Says, I had to fix this problem myself. And she takes one good look at it, and she picks the Gungans. And she offers a hand of friendship. Now she's no longer in her shadow. She switched to the light side. For me, that's pretty much what the Phantom Menace is. And I think it's a really bright movie. I've always liked it. Yeah, I highly recommend Star Wars. I might go over episode 2 and 3. What happens is, spoiler, the movies boil down to a message, I think, that helps kids or young people or anyone really uh, get started out in life. It was where they practice self-reliance. And then after that is, I'll talk about it next. And then after that is what happens next. And it's really good advice. And they're cautionary tales. People love Star Wars, and it's really good. Okay, that's all. Thanks for listening. Be well, everyone.